How do you understand when a plan is a bad plan in chess? In this video, I'll show you two games that highlight my points to give you a quick tool to judge whether a plan is good or bad in that position. Are you ready for some middle game training, plan making training, folks? This position attracted my attention. It's an online game that I witnessed one day. White in this position played a very mysterious move, bishop b1. And when I see moves like this, I was like, what is going on? Please explain to me. If it's not a mouse slip, please explain to me your deeper point, my friend. All right? Bishop b1. Either a crazy chess crime or a genius plan. And that's my question to you right now. Already after bishop b1, please judge what white is playing for in this position. And now you'll see, slowly but surely, what white is playing for after bishop b1. In 4 moves, they formed this battery, queen and bishop battery on this completely closed diagonal. All right? The game continues. I will first show you the game. Hilarious. Continues. Bishop g5, h6, takes. White now goes d4. You see, this battery is becoming more venomous potentially. Black takes the pawn, and then black goes knight h7. And you can guess white's next move, folks. Of course, they go e5 and finally activate the battery which they were playing for from the very beginning. Black doesn't see the threat and black loses after queen h7 mate. So white got rewarded, you might say, from the entire plan of bishop b1 and queen c2. Is this a genius plan in practical terms, or is there a defect to this plan? Was the plan objectively a good plan or a bad plan? That's my question to you. It's like meta thinking a little bit, right? It's like philosophically, given how the game went, do you really believe in the strength of this plan, or should we dismiss it like a chess crime altogether? In some sense, white was consistent. White tried to justify the move bishop b1 by moving the knight first, playing c3, getting the queen in front of the bishop, and then playing d4 ultimately, right? It looks like white is at least consistent. But objectively, to my mind, the plan is still a bad plan because we're not playing checkers. We are playing chess. Black was in no position to grab the pawn on d4 and ultimately allow the move e5, which awakened the white's army. Are you with me, folks? Some part of this plan involved checkers mentality. It involved wishful thinking that if black takes my pawn, then I can justify my battery on that diagonal. But we're not playing checkers, unfortunately. Black could have played any move, for example, rook e8 in this position, and after, let's say, takes, black still keeps the pawn on e5, which is blocking white's pawn, a piece of wood that is getting in the way of the entire battery. So white's entire game plan, in some sense, failed because there's a pawn on e4. There is no way for white to get rid of the pawn on e4, and now even your rook is sleeping because of the bishop on b1, right? So much so is that, well, the engine gives bishop a2 as the best move here for white. White should accept the defeat. White should admit the mistake. White should show humility, accept the mistake, and play the move bishop a2 because the bishop sucks. At least you want to exchange off black's good bishop for your bad bishop in this position. But what happens, especially in lower levels, is since your mistaken plans are not punished, on the contrary, since your mistaken plans are rewarded by blunders like this, then you never get the right lessons, right? So these things repeat themselves in the next games. I'm not sure whether white took the real lessons from this game or white told himself, hey, I had a genius plan, look at me, right? The entire battery, the entire plan was so beautiful, so genius. Well, he might tell himself, this was the reason I won this game, because of my genius plan that I formed on the move bishop b1. If you never work with a coach, if you never analyze your games, then you can also get the wrong lessons from your victories, right? So one way of quickly checking whether a plan is good or bad is to ask yourself whether the opponent has to react to your ideas. What happens if they simply do nothing in this position, just like here? What if black doesn't drastically change the pawn structure and allow an awakening of the battery? What if black simply waits? You have nothing, my friend, right? You show nothing in this position. There is no way to forcefully get rid of the pawn on e4 if black does nothing. So this was quite a nice cheat sheet, kind of a very simple way for white to check the strength of the entire plan which they formed like 5-6 moves ago, right? Also notice that the entire plan involved paralyzing a good bishop on a2, right? That bishop was a good piece. Controlling central squares, looking at the king over there, that was a good piece. You spent so much time to get the bishop on a2. Suddenly you're giving up all these ideas just to be able to make your other plan work. Yeah. Also look at the potential defects of your plan. For example, you're killing your rook by choosing this plan. Are you aware of those drawbacks before going for that plan? Folks, second game, slightly more complex example, but it's still very rewarding. A student game, he was playing with the black pieces here. Black has an extra pawn in this position. All else being equal, black should be better in this position. And now white player chose a plan and they went for e4. Now we are looking at the reverse angle. We are judging whether your opponent's plan is good or bad. Okay? Black to play. How would you play in this position? Would you take the pawn on e4? Would you grab the knight on c3? Or would you rather drop the bishop back to e6? Right? If I may ask you, choose between those three moves. Of course, they involve you judging the strength of the white plan, which they initiated by the move e4. Okay? You have an extra pawn. Don't forget that. Folks, I'll first show you how the actual game went because my student panicked in this position after e4 and he destroyed his position with series of committal decisions. He first took the knight because he thought, yeah, the knight is putting pressure in the center of the board and it's speaking to this move e4. He gave up his good bishop in return for the knight. He also opened up the b file and exposed his knight potentially on that file as well, right? Very committal decision. Secondly, he took the pawn on e4 as well. Another very committal decision. Central pawn structure transformation, also activating the bishop on g2, again allowing the move coming with tempo, giving white beautiful, ideal pawn center as a result. That's how he played in this position. Then he dropped back the bishop to e6. Black has still a slight advantage, but black lost most of their advantage by reacting to the opponent's bad plan. I'm looking at the transformation. Everything is changed. New dynamics is introduced. Not to mention ideas like rook b1, folks. White got great counterplay after black's committal decision that changed the natural course of the game completely. And it's all because black misjudged the opponent's plan. The best recipe was to simply drop the bishop back to e6, my friends. There is nothing to be scared about the plan of e4, right? If you never take the pawn, white will not even activate the bishop in this position. Taking the pawn on e4 also involves you activating that bishop on b2, right? You will rather have this pawn fixed on d4. Start talking to your opponent's pieces, folks. The bishop sucks if you do nothing. The bishop sucks if you do nothing in this position, all right? Never take the knight on c3 because that's a bad piece in this position. That's a good bishop. Even the knight on d2 is a terrible piece. You have a good rook on the a file. You will never give them these options like this as well by simple retreat of bishop e6, right? Look at some lines. If they take on d5, they only help the knight. They only help your knight reaching the outpost on d5, my friend. It only helped black, right? Takes. Beautiful knight on d5. An amazing position for black. Black is completely winning. It's black, in fact, who increased the advantage. Rook a2s are coming. The knight is hanging. The bishop sucks. Beautiful knight, right? See, I'm showing you these ideas just so you stop panicking about your opponent's ideas. Bishop e6 takes is never good. Well, the only consistent way forward for white to execute the bad plan is e5. But even after e5, you drop back the knight to d7. Again, talk to the pieces. Terrible knight on c3, does nothing. Terrible bishop on b2, a tall pawn because of the pawn on b2. The bishop is also a bad piece on g2. The only idea might be f4, but even after f4, all of the white pieces are still quite restricted in this position. f5 is not a threat. You keep a beautiful pawn on d5, very stable pawn. Black has an extra pawn, right? A-file pressure as well. Some knight a4 ideas are there potentially. Not to mention even simple moves like bishop f5 back And bishop is a very good piece on this diagonal. Can later on go to d3, for example, and so on, right? What is white doing in this position if black simply does nothing? Black is so far doing nothing, only expects white to show their card. It turns out after e5 and knight d7, f4, white has nothing much to show. It's black who is still completely winning in this position. So the lesson is, by panicking, by overreacting to the opponent's plan, black destroyed his own position. In fact, after bishop f5, the only move for white might be is to neutralize our rook. But of course we have an extra pawn, we simplify the situation. Again, please talk to the pieces in both camps. Black's pieces are ideally better because even this knight is eyeing this outpost on c4, thus tying down the opponent's knight on d2. Even knight a4 is a further simplification idea. Knight is actually paving way for the b pawn, and if you take my knight, then I grab your knight on d2, and now b5, b4 is coming. Black has the pass pawn, and the simplest way to win this position is to simply roll the pass pawn, not to mention later on knight b6, knight c4 ideas, beautiful bishops, terrible bishops for white. Black is actually winning in this position with best play, my friends. For example, this b5, well, where is the knight going in its position, my friends? Knight c5, I simply take that guy, and now this guy is rolling. Look at this, folks. It's actually a very, very simple winning mechanism, my friends. Black is completely winning because of this extra and passed b pawn in this position. No counterplay was given to white. Beautiful and easy victory for black. So what is the lesson from this example? Very instructive to my mind, especially for intermediate players. Black had an extra pawn. After the move e4, black panicked and they lost most of their advantage by drastic exchanges, pawn structure transformations, right? First of all, you have to be much more careful before you exchange those pieces and pawns because everything is changing. And simply asking yourself, okay, I see e4, but what is the next move? What is your real intention with this plan? Is it in fact a good plan for white? Is it, for example, good for white to take my pawn on d5, right? That's something that is new. That is new in this position. White now can take on d5, but it only helps black. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to quickly understand this transformation is better for black. And vice versa. What if they go e5? Is it really dangerous for me? Should I really panic about this idea, right? Once you look at like 2 moves deeper, you understand there is nothing to be scared about in this position. By the way, folks, I will show you a chess crime that took place in the actual game. Despite the fact that my student destroyed his position with these exchanges, he went back to e6. Here, instead of playing the move rook b1, white destroyed their position by moving to e5. Chess crime 101, because this only gave this beautiful juicy post for the knight on d5, right? White should have enjoyed their mobile pawn center for the moment. As I said, even d5s are allowed in this position to activate the bishop on c3. There is no threat. White should just enjoy those pawns and activate the worst place piece in its position. But again, impulsive reaction, white just played e4 2 moves ago and he wants to just push forward, right? He just has this momentum going. He never ask himself, what is the drawback of me pushing to e5? Well, the drawback is now the knight is gaining this d5 outpost, my friend. You're creating an outpost for that knight in this position. And suddenly, black had full control again. Why? Because the bishop sucks. If you take my knight, thank you so much, I can replace my knight, and the bishop is still terrible. The rook is coming to the second rank. Black is again completely winning in this position. Again, d5 would open up the game for the bishop pair for white. d5 will be a much stronger move than the crime e5, which only helped knights because knights like stable outposts in chess. This is such an instructive example actually, right? White has the bishop pair, black has a knight pair. Do you go d5 or e5? d5 is an opening move. e5 is a closing move that is actually only helping the knights. This will be your homework position, folks. White to play equal material. I want you to judge the strength of the plan of h4 followed by g4 to roll the pawns on the king side, right? White wants to create some play on the king side because white thinks all the black pieces are on the queen side, so let's create some play on the king side. So he proposes h4 followed by g4, and maybe after takes I will create the pass pawn and I will create play on that side. I want you to judge the strength of the plan of h4 followed by g4, right? You tell me, is it a good plan or a bad plan? By writing your comments on YouTube, and I respond to each and every one of you. Okay? I hope you got the right lessons from this episode. If you summarize it yourself, that's even better for consolidation, for real learning to take place. These lessons, folks, is transferable to other situations. As always the case in my videos, I don't show you only positions that only works in one domain. I'm much more interested in higher lessons that has higher chance of occurrence in your games in different structures. And this lesson is also one of those. I just gave you a quick cheat sheet to understand the strength of a plan in chess. Okay? Hope you loved it. Like and subscribe if you like the video so I can keep on producing content that actually helps you get better in this beautiful game. Bye bye.